What's going on, guys? This is episode 10 of Illegal Defense. Crazy week in college football, to say the least. Lot of upsets, a lot of just chaos in college football, it seems. So we're gonna jump right into it with the first game that we spoke about fondly last week, with the Tennessee matchup at Georgia, and Tennessee just got mauled. It was 13-27. Georgia handled business, and I personally don't think the scoreboard shows like the dominance that Georgia had in this game.
Yeah, Georgia pretty much came out. They had home field advantage. Kirby Smart had came out, told his, pretty much put his fans on notice. Told them they should be loud and screaming, and that if they have any voice left, then they didn't really do it right.
Right,
Something
right.
along those lines. And yeah, the atmosphere was great over there. Georgia hasn't really been known as somewhere with a good home field advantage, but that has been kind of changing with the emergence of Kirby Smart there and really building them up to be a tier one program,
Right.
out recruiting most programs. They're kind of up there with the Alabamas, the Ohio States, the Clemsons now when it comes to recruiting. Um, and yeah, we know the story with Georgia. Tons of guys went in, first round and other other rounds in the NFL draft. Now
Right.
they're playing on Sundays, and they just, you know, had a bunch of talented guys step up this year. More five stars take over. Um, the question was with this Tennessee team that's been rolling, that beat Alabama. Can Georgia's defense hold up against the likes of a real explosive offense like that? And they showed that they can. They were fairly dominant. Georgia took some shots on offense, kind of really came out, airing the ball out, made some big plays down the field, and they played a complete game, running the ball, passing the
Passing the
ball,
ball. Stetson Bennett
pass
played a real great
defense,
game.
run defense, really everything. So yeah, Tennessee, they took them a while to really settle in. They had some problems with offsides and jumping the snap and things like that because of that home field advantage that Georgia had there. And yeah, you saw, they weren't really comfortable there. Like I said, it took them a while to settle in, and they kind of never really fully settled in. Like you said, the score isn't really indicative of how the game went when Georgia pretty much dominated from front to back on that game. Tennessee scores a late touchdown. We had the weather elements involved where, it starts raining and things like that.
Right.
And that caused, Georgia to not put up as points like they did in the first half, but very clear win for Georgia. Not much in their way. I mean, stat wise, if you just look at third down efficiency, Georgia was 7 of 12, Tennessee 2 for 14. I
Wow.
mean, you
Yeah, just that
yeah,
alone.
you hold the offense like that to 2 and 14, you're probably gonna win the game.
Right.
They did that by forcing them into lots of third and longs. And if you look at sacks, Tennessee had zero, Georgia had six, right? So they were putting pressure on Hendon Hooker, not giving him tons of time to be able to throw the ball down the field. And yeah, they kind of just put up more stats all around, more rushing yards, more passing yards, all these things. So yeah, great showing by Georgia. Kind of cemented their spot as the true number one team
For
of
sure.
of this year. And yeah, they're pretty much locked in to be in that SEC championship game at this point. And we'll see where it goes from there. But they look to be the favorites to close out the year as the number one seed, and everyone's kind of trying to catch them in terms of performance and things of that nature. So yeah, great. But look, it was a good matchup. It was good to see Tennessee get to go up against some great competition and
Right.
see how they fared. And look, it was at Georgia. I'm sure if it was in Tennessee, this game could have been a little bit closer.
Yeah, it could have been a little
It
different.
seemed like a situation where Georgia should beat a team like Tennessee, right? But we also see matchups like last year where Georgia played Bama,
Right.
and two different games and two different outcomes. So who knows? But yeah, like we said, Georgia clear number one here. They'll be number one ranked in the AP poll. They'll be number one ranked in the playoff
Yeah.
committee, and they'll move on accordingly. We can get into another big SEC matchup. This one had number 6 Alabama going into Death Valley of number 10 LSU, and this one was an exciting game. It was a more close game, more
Yeah.
well balanced, a lot more action, a lot more thrills involved, and
Just
you know,
gutsy calls all around.
yeah, and this was a game that when we previewed last week, I thought Bama was going to get the jump on them. Historically, Bama under this Nick Saban era has been able to kind of turn it on for games like this and really dominate. And didn't seem to be the case here, right? Bama has a few issues. Sometimes on the defensive end with some lapses. I mean, and look, they have great players, but
Yeah, they
still,
have great personnel, so it's not a personnel issue at all.
yeah, they're just something's a little off on the defensive end, and then on the offensive end, they're just missing an elite wide receiver. They've been able to find them or have guys step up in the past. Last year, even transfer portal with Jameson Williams coming from Ohio State. This year they don't have one of those guys. Their best offensive player besides Bryce Young is the running back Jameer Gibbs.
Yeah.
And, they try to use him in the pass game. He'll catch some passes even down the field or, dump it off and be able to make plays, but it's just not enough. Jaden Daniels for LSU just played an amazing game.
Yeah, he played great.
He's been kind of doing a little bit of this all year where he's been using his feet and really being one of these guys that everyone knows is a dangerous dual threat quarterback, right? They know that he can really hurt you when he scrambles and gets out of the pocket, and he could pick up yards. But he's almost like has this sneaky speed where people know he's fast, but he's still faster than they think.
Right.
And you will see it in games like I've seen games earlier this year with LSU where he's dropping back and then scrambling, and it's happening play after play after play, and you're like, oh, this team is not really finding a way to stop it.
Right.
And
so it's like you might as well until you stop it, you might as well keep going with it. So
yeah, and so he hurt them. This game went down to the wire, forced overtime,
yeah.
and then in overtime, Brian Kelly puts his big balls on the table, so to speak, and goes for 2. And they convert and they win the game. So huge call at home. Look, Brian Kelly kind of already cemented himself legacy wise in LSU, right? This is a game that those fans won't forget.
Yeah,
it'll be a big game for them to go and beat Nick Saban. To do it your first year, I mean, it sets up pretty well for him. And,
what a way to like kind of come back from the beginning of the season. We talked about it earlier on in the season, and just about the whole factor with Brian Kelly not really going for it, not really believing in his guys, and him doing that. Forget about it. And then in that environment, it just goes to show it's like, okay, now you made up for it. And then on top of that, you beat Bama at that.
They beat Bama. They storm the field. They have the whole, huge celebration. So
it's crazy.
Good for them. And the other, obviously, consequences of this matchup is LSU now takes lead of the SEC West from here on out. And so if they can win out. They don't have a super easy schedule to win out, but if they can win out, they'll be in the SEC championship game against Georgia. If LSU loses a game and Alabama wins out from here, Alabama would then will be able to make that game. But yeah, huge playoff implications as well, as Bama has
pretty much out of it.
Pretty much out of it. I mean, there can be some pass for them to get in. That LSU would have to lose a game. They would have to probably get into the SEC championship game, and then a lot of chaos would have to happen with the Big 12, the Pac 12,
Nah.
ACC, all kind of killing each other off. But barring anything like that, Alabama's kind of out,
Right.
which is crazy to see this early in the year. But that's how things go in college football. We can get into a Big 12 matchup also with some playoff implications with Texas Tech traveling to number 7 TCU. TCU is able to stay undefeated here. They kind of been playing these games where it's a back and forth game for usually 3 quarters or so, and then they pull away in the fourth. This game wasn't much different than what we've seen out of the other games this year, and yeah, TCU, like I said, they stay undefeated. They put themselves squarely in that playoff conversation, especially with losses to Bama and other chaos going on, and yeah, they're pretty much the Big 12's, I would say, last hope at this point.
Yeah.
The playoff committee has been kind of disrespecting TCU a little bit by kind of leaving them lower in the rankings. They ranked a team like Bama ahead of them last week when Bama already has a loss
Has
and
a
things
loss
like
and
that.
they have their troubles as it is.
Yeah, if TCU can't win out and then win the Big 12, Big 12's probably not getting in. TCU, in a game that we'll preview, we'll be going at playing Texas this week, which they're underdogs in. So and their odds to win and get to the playoffs are lower than other teams that seem to be possibly out of it, like Tennessee and other teams like that are like, things will have to work
Work
a
in their
little bit in their
favor.
favor for them to get in. TCU controls their own destiny. If they win out, they're in. But
Yeah.
with the nature of the Big 12 and the way those offenses play, the back and forth kind of games that are going on in that conference, right now they're, like I said, they control their own destiny. But if you let Vegas call it, they're not
It's a whole
projected
nother.
to win out, so to speak. But yeah, well, it's definitely a team to keep an eye on. Would be a good big, nice story for the Big 12 to
Yeah.
have an undefeated TCU team get in the
Especially a
playoff.
especially a different Big 12 team
Yeah,
because
not
it's
not
we're
a
so used to,
Oklahoma
yeah,
or a
exactly.
Texas or something like
And
that.
it's
Yeah,
like we're so used to seeing Oklahoma go in and then they just get spanked by whatever team that they get into. So it's like it'll be nice to see new blood get into the playoffs. Obviously, we've been talking about a lot of other teams on the emergence and a lot of teams kind of taking a step back.